Hi, everybody. My name is Phil Blancato. I am CEO and President of Latimer Falman Asset Management, Chief Market Strategist for Mosaic. Welcome to another weekly Market Impact. We'll start off with the easy one. Happy birthday, America. America 250. I hope you enjoyed the incredible celebrations. I happen to be down at the Jersey Shore, and it's kind of a fun story. The shoreline of the coast, obviously just below New York City, is just littered with little beach towns that are famous for their, kind of warm summer glow, as I put it. Lots of families, very intimate setting, people just hanging out, having a lot of fun, and really beautiful. New Jersey gets a bad rap, some of it deservedly so. But in this case, I'd say the Jersey Shore really is a pretty spectacular place. So what happens on this holiday is everybody drives over to Pennsylvania and they buy where Pennsylvania sells legal fireworks, and they buy truckloads of the stuff. And they go up to the beach on the fourth night, and on the night of Fourth of July, and they just start lighting off fireworks. And the houses team up, and they just go absolutely crazy. And that the entire coastline is littered with these massive firework displays that just go on for what seems like an hour or more, and people spending. I can't even imagine the economic impact for the state of Pennsylvania this year had to be significant, because I'm sure people bought more than what they normally do because the 250th anniversary of the United States. And certainly, when I think back at with how how much I saw in an hour was quite incredible. In any event, hope you had a wonderful time. We got to do some nice barbecuing down here. It was incredibly hot. I don't know where you were, but the East Coast was an inferno. Felt like someone had a blow dryer on your face constantly. It was that kind of heat. You just couldn't escape it. And oddly enough, the ocean water is still pretty chilly. Usually this time of year, it's much warmer. It was in the 60s, low 60s. Usually by now we're in the 70s. And it was a little frigid, but crystal clear blue, believe it or not. Really wonderful. And we got that friends and family together on this wonderful weekend. I actually have a cousin who's born on the 4th of July, so we got to celebrate a birthday cake. Had really a wonderful 4th of July. For me, a moment of reflection. If you heard my podcast last week, I talked a little bit about, for all the good and bad of the United States, whatever we could sit and debate. I don't really get into politics. But if you just watch some of the videos that are out there that are so incredible. In fact, there's a country song that come out that was created for this, and it kind of details all the highlights that the international fans saw when they came for the World Cup. I think it's so emblematic of who we are. I think when you look at, the kind of the excitement of the United States, and I think we're still the greatest country in the world by far. To me, there's no comparison. I just would marvel that. I'm sure you saw some of this, whether it's someone walking into Buc-ee's for their first time, and seeing that massive gas station, or getting a free refill of soda, or going to Taco Bell, going to Waffle House. Well, one of the most endearing stories, one of the German fans, after they lost the match in Boston, had trouble getting back to his hotel. So he was asking somebody for a ride, and sure enough, a local New Englander said, "No, no problem. Jump in my car," and gave him a ride. And the fan was brought to tears. He said, "This isn't the kind of stuff that happens in Europe. We're different. We're not this way." And for all he heard about that there was crime, and people were rude, and we were going to treat them poorly, it's been quite the opposite. That I think the world has realized that the United States isn't just New York and Los Angeles. It's actually everything in the middle. And in fairness, whether it was the Kansas City or the Texas experience, the New York, New Jersey, Meadowland, New York City experience, certainly, but even Canada and Mexico, it's been the greatest World Cup ever. Some of it's a little odd. I guess there's some people I know who take real offense with the water breaks. That's a new thing, probably done for marketing sales and beer sales. During those water breaks, beer sales skyrocket. So I think that's quite interesting. If you're not a World Cup fan, I'm probably boring you. But besides that, the attendance records. I don't like the price of the tickets. The tickets for everybody who wanted to come to the United States, and ticket prices are absolutely incredible. But besides that, I think that the cup has been pretty incredible. So, but I'm not talking about the cup. I'm talking about the United States. Forgive me, I'm going too far in one direction. I often tell the story about what makes America such a great country, and the four things that come to my mind are: one, commodities. We have all the water, natural resources we can use. We're protected on pretty much all sides by water, so we really don't have a lot to be concerned about when it comes to the need for stuff, for goods. and protection. And then we have immigration. I know less of it right now, which is very disappointing to me. We need legal immigration. We need to have a growing population. Demographics matter. They support the growth of the country. And generally, we have more immigrants here than any other country in the world, usually combined. So we outnumber everyone when it comes to bringing in bodies, and we need it. As the boomer generation retires, we're not birthing enough babies. If we don't have immigrants, that's a problem. And ideally, of course, we want immigrants to become part of the American culture. I know there's some of that out there. But I mean, we all know, I'm sure, an immigrant family or two that are just wonderful and thrilled to be here. So that's a very important part of the American story. The other two are legal. Bankruptcy rights. We have the best bankruptcy laws in the world. We can go bankrupt, start all over again, and rebuild anew. Most countries don't even allow that, and that's part at the core of American capitalism. That and small banks. Having small banks is part of that. Small regional banks that are willing to take risk in lending. I haven't got into it in a while, but the Dodd-Frank Act of 2008, post the financial crisis, was really very interesting in that it helped fix some of the wrongs, some of the leverage that was in the banking system, but it went a bit too far, a little too aggressive. So for that reason, we finally seem like we're working on the small banks and getting them to lend again. It's a very important part of bankruptcy law and birthing new companies. In 2025, we started more new companies ever in the history of the United States. 2026, it's even faster. And that's because of AI. You can build a company today in seconds, in no time at all. But you need to have money, access to capital. And I think that that's happening. So commodities, bankruptcy law, immigration. The third one, believe it or not, patent rights. That patent rights give you the ability to have an idea and own it for a long period of time, become maybe a trillionaire like Elon Musk. Think of all the patents that Tesla has. Why I start there is at the core of American capitalism. And I'm not getting into the new socialist movement that's out there. I don't really care much about that. I think it's kind of silly. I don't talk about politics and whether or not socialism or capitalism. But at the end, I mean, I personally am a capitalist, but I mean, because I think the capitalist system works. And the reason why I'm living proof of that. My mom and dad were immigrants from Italy, and as were my in-laws, and very successful people, and the system worked quite well for them. If you're arguing that today it's different than it was, in 1956 when my father got here, I don't know about that. I don't think that's the case at all. I do marvel at the new Trump accounts. I think they're quite interesting. I think I hate the name. I don't know the president needs to put the name on there. I think that's somewhat unusual. But besides that, what it can do is allow for a savings vehicle that invests in markets immediately and let anyone participate in the child's account as well as contributions from corporations or billionaires or trillionaires, whatever. I think the more I learn about them, the more I think they're quite interesting. And I think it's, maybe something that's not just a gimmick, but maybe become fundamental part of every child's ability to grow wealth. I don't like that the top 10% of the American population owns the bulk of U.S. stocks. So that tells me maybe this is a way to change that. And that math doesn't generally include 401ks and pensions, but certainly we know who the wealthy own the bulk of the assets in the United States, which is a bit of an issue with the K-shaped economy for sure. And that tends to fix itself as wealth transfers from one generation to the next. But having said that, I think the American system works because of its capitalist ideals, proven by the fans that came here for the World Cup. I think is was exciting, and their embracement of our culture and what we do, and how open we were to them. But also the wealth. Look at the wealth of the United States. It wasn't created by accident. It was created by this system. Today we're more wealthy than any other country in the world. Yet we're 3% of the world's population. We have converted from a manufacturing economy to a service economy because of our wealth. And we're fixing some of that. In prior podcasts, I've talked a lot about how you're watching this incredible growth of this manufacturing sector happen in living color. And I think that's pretty cool. I think that's exciting that we're seeing some manufacturing come back. But by and large, you're the wealthiest country on the planet by a lot. And the average person in the United States is more wealthy than the rest of the world. Is there an imbalance between trillionaires and people who can't go who maybe can't find work right now? It's less so today than any time in recent history. If you look at the poverty rates of the 70s versus today, they're much better. Look at the number of people who live in the middle class today versus middle class in the 70s, much better. Look at the wealthy, much more wealthy today than they were in the 70s. That's all part of the growth system. So forgive me for the long tangent. I hear some negative things out there, and I struggle with agreeing with it. When you look at the facts don't line up with that. For this week, I'd say a quick update on markets. I don't want to bore you too much. We've had some very lengthy podcasts recently, so I thought I would take it easy on you this week. But when you think about markets and where they are right now, I think it's quite incredible that we are seeing this fundamental run in memory. And the reason why I think that's so powerful is that memory stocks in of themselves have been, think about your old Micron hard drive that you had. That was it ever going to, mean that much to you? Well, what we found is the spillover effect from AI has really kind of changed the narrative around how markets are working right now. And by that, I mean, you're seeing this other aspects of the market do quite well. So Micron Technologies, I'm not recommending stock, just give you an example of a company that makes make memory for your computer, or they call it DRAM to a great extent. And why this is a big deal is because the spillover effect from AI is that companies absolutely have to have more memory in order to work in their AI systems. Well, what once was an old sleepy part of the market has now become this quite incredible part of the market. And that, Micron trading over $1,000 a share, depending on the day, and then thinking about all the other aspects of the marketplace that are having this spillover effect, whether it's Corning or Caterpillar or Cummins Diesel, and there's a whole laundry list of them. But I mention this because I think when you look at markets right now, understanding where AI is going to have a revenue impact is critical to investing. Where can you make a bet besides the Mag 7? Because the Mag 7 haven't been all that exciting this year. They've been, in fact, very unexciting. So it's the other areas of the market, in this place, the chips and the hardware that have memory specifically. And oddly enough, if you look at the memory market, with the expected growth return, now Micron went from a couple $100 a share to over 1,000, and you would think that stock's wildly expensive. Well, in fact, that's not really the case. If believe it or not, they meet their revenue expectations, and they meet their demand expectations, stock's actually cheap. So if you look at the price for how much they earn, their expected earnings in the future could be almost 60, 70% higher than where they are today. I'll give you an example. Their margins. If you have a company and for every dollar you make in sales, if you earn 10%, that's a pretty good company. Well, their margins throughout their history were about 15%. Their margins for every dollar they make are about 60% right now. So in other words, for every dollar they sell, they make 60 cents on a dollar. And that's an example of the AI spillover, which I think is quite fascinating right now. And I think that says something for the market's ability to broaden out, change, and grow. And I really am excited about what happens next for this kind of AI story. And that I don't think it's about the Mag 7 only. And certainly they're a big part of it, not going in, and NVIDIA's not going anywhere, SpaceX isn't going anywhere. It's just getting going, obviously, with Microsoft, which has had a little bit of a tougher run. I still think the stock is very good, in my opinion. I'm not telling you to buy them, good company. Apple, another interesting company that hasn't had, up and down all over the place, but it's other areas of the market to me that look quite interesting right now. And again, I'm not recommending any of those stocks. I'm saying we grew up the last couple of years. We've been spending a lot of time the last few years on the Mag 7. Well, the story is other stuff now, like a Micron, like a memory place, or a Corning or a Cummins. The breadth of the market, how wide it is better. And so when you look at the stock market's return, and really is kind of fascinating. I call it for the first 6 months of the year, and this my data is as of June 6th. The S&P's up 10% on the year. That's a great return. 10% is a wonderful number. The Dow, however, is up 11. The Dow is beating the S&P. How about that? Last week, the Dow beat it pretty handily. What's off a little bit last week were small caps, but still up 21.5% on the year. Doubling those two major indexes. So value stocks up 18%, large cap value versus a large cap growth only up 3. A lot of those Mag 7 names fall in that category. So the changing of the market has happened in front of us. And it's for some of the reasons I talked about, this spillover effect of other areas of AI. And with the conflict in Iran seemingly at an end, you never know what's Lebanon and Israel, what's happening there, with the Iranians really pushing back on what they think is the end and what the agreement might or might not be. The president seems to have no desire to attack anymore. In his opinion, the nuclear issue has been resolved. Whether it has or has not been, we don't never know, I guess, or it seems like it has. But if his argument, this was nuclear disarmament and the mission accomplished, the rest of it doesn't care. Will they charge a fee in the Strait of Hormuz? It doesn't seem that way yet, but certainly oil prices are reflecting things that are much better than what they've been, which is really pretty positive. But having said that, markets right now are reacting as if things are just fine. So value stocks beating growth stocks on the year, or international stocks, believe it or not, EFA up almost 11.7%, beating the S&P. And, we have an allocation to that. We invest in that. Emerging markets up over 24% on the year. So the rest of the markets besides the S&P doing quite well. The bond market flat, up half of 1%. The bond market really can't get out of its own way this year. But I do think we have this scenario right now where, the market has fully agreed that things are okay, that the war issue is not a big deal, and that ultimately we're going to get to a place where we'll probably be just fine at this growth rate because margins on the S&P 500 are really quite good. And I think that's a scenario where it's hard to look past the fact that when margins are this good, well, why not, continue to grow at a fair pace and look at other areas of the market that can be very profitable. We did see some data come out in the last week here that I want to hit on. Just this morning, we got ISM services. And so the service sector of the U.S. economy is far and away the biggest thing we focus on. And the reason why we focus so heavily on it is because we have a scenario where the bulk of the U.S. economy, 70%, is still in the service sector. So as long as we're still a service-oriented country, watching services do well is critically important. Now, we're still in expansion. We contracted a little bit last month, but not a heck of a lot. Nothing terribly in that sense. We did see the U.S. economy add 57,000 jobs in June. That was a little bit below expectations. We thought we were going to add around 129,000. Sorry, 110,000. So we added enough jobs to keep things kind of where they are. Not better, not worse. We did see the unemployment rate drop to 4.2%. So it was a little bit disappointing that we saw it come down. And the reason why is people leaving the workforce, not new jobs being added. But we did see the JOLTS market, the number of jobs available, jump up to almost 7.5 million. So while I'm a little disappointed in our participation rate coming down to 61.5, that number should be closer to 63. Excuse me. I'm fairly confident having the job market be healthy at 7.6 million open jobs is pretty impressive. Now, we did get ISM manufacturing last week, and it's still in expansion, still at 54. And what that basically means is anything above 50 is expansion, and anything below 50 is contraction. So we're seeing a really long stretch here of the manufacturing sector grow at a fairly healthy pace. And that's important. We haven't seen that in a long time, since late 2019 into 2020. So I'm excited by that. Is this renaissance in U.S. manufacturing really happening? And it seems like it might be. And one of the good things about last week's payroll report, we saw wages actually improve a little bit. Average hourly earnings for employees rose by 0.3 and are at 3.5% year over year. That's a nice number. I'd like to see the number closer to 4, but it's above the rate of inflation, assuming that inflation comes down now because we're obviously having oil at a much lower level. Oil's almost at pre-war levels, depending on the day, 67 to 73. So the job market healthy, oil market healthy as of right now, manufacturing healthy as of right now, ISM services healthy as of right now, and then add to that the wage number is good enough to keep the low-end consumer hanging in there. The Federal Reserve, the idea of a hike, I think, is silly. I don't know why we keep talking about that. It seems completely unnecessary. But there's talk about the Fed doing nothing for a while, so I think that's probably right. We still need to understand the AI impact. What's AI going to do for jobs? What is AI going to do for the overall productivity of the average U.S. American company? And does AI ultimately mean that we have a more productive economy with less jobs? I don't think so. I still think new jobs will be created because of it, but I'm not convinced that we know all the details just yet. So that's a future state thing. But for now, earnings season is going to begin in earnest here. This week we'll start to get some earnings reports. And if earnings continue like they did in the second quarter, for the first, what we saw in the second quarter for the first quarter, now that we're in the third quarter, we're going to see how second quarter earnings are. But if they continue to be as strong as they've been, the market should go higher. I still don't think it's more than a 15% year on the S&P 500, which is double our normal returns, which is a great number. I still think it's probably more like 12. And I'm concerned about the September time period, midterm elections, some of the rhetoric around the president's, making too much money personally, and what's happened with the Iran war, what sentiment is going to be on productivity, this kind of socialist aspect of the Democratic Party. What is this all going to mean for headlines that people are going to get stirred up about? I think that's something to be a bit concerned about. And I would say September is always the most volatile month of the year, so it's worth noting that we got to be careful with that. But ultimately, I think we're in a scenario where markets are quite strong. Earnings continue to be strong. Markets are quite strong, and we're hanging in there, hanging in there better than I would have expected. So I don't think a lot to be worried about right now. And markets have been great, as I mentioned already. It's all about next step for AI is AI adoption. What does AI adoption ultimately mean, and how will it work out from the idea of what does it mean for productivity and what does it mean for impact for AI? And I think that's where probably most exciting about where it goes, and impact being what does it mean for the job market. But for today, the spillover effect from AI is real. We're seeing other companies profit from it really quite well. And there's not a lot of economic worries right now that I could see, other than the fact that you have some higher inflation, which might ultimately create a problem. But I don't think it creates one for today. And for that reason, quite excited about where we're at in the marketplace. One fun note, on July 9th of this month, a couple of days from now, the Ladenburg Thalmann original company, Ladenburg Thalmann and Company, the original broker-dealer, which was founded in 1876, will celebrate its 150th anniversary. I'll be on the podium. I won't be ringing the bell, but I'll be on the podium that day as we close out the New York Stock Exchange in honor of that moment. It's quite exciting. 150 years as a part of the stock market, part of the New York City environment. We helped raise money for the New York City many years ago. We are still thought of in the annals of New York City history as one of the companies that helped bring capital from Europe to get New York up and running. A lot of McThelman Asset Management, which I'm obviously a part of, was started back in the late 90s, and I was lucky enough to come in 2002 and take it over, but been a part of Latimer Thelman and Company since I joined many years ago, 23 years ago almost. And now we're owned by Osaic, the family of companies of Osaic, but it's kind of cool. So if you happen to be maybe have the TV on in your office, or you're out there doing something, if you happen to be tuning in on the 9th, look at this at the end of the day, maybe CNBC or Fox, whatever, Fox Business, turn on and watch the closing bell, and you'll see all of us from Latimer Thelman and Company, that we are proud of our heritage, proud of where we've come from, just like the United States. Great beginnings that'll become even more bigger and better, and we think have helped people for decades. And it's an honor to do what we do. We've been doing it for a long time, and it really is an honor to do what we do. We really do appreciate the opportunity to let us into your house or into your life, how we can maybe help a little bit about research, or maybe invest some money for you, or something in between. As an investment banker, help new companies come into the marketplace or raise capital for other companies. So very excited about Latimer Thalmann and Company, the original investment banking firm, coupled today with Latimer Thalmann Asset Management, both owned by Jose, but celebrating 150th anniversary. Kind of cool. I definitely wasn't there at the beginning of it, and I'm not sure I'll be there at the end of it. But for today, it's still a part of it for now. I really hope you had a wonderful, healthy, and happy 4th of July. Remember last week, my shout out was to the United States about celebrating our 250th. That was easy. This week, I'm going to do something a little different. My second shout, no, just one shout out this week. I'll make it easy. I want to give a shout out to Vozina. And who he was the goalie for Cape Verde. And why I want to give him a shout out is because we love the underdog here in the United States, whether it's a miracle on ice that happened with our hockey team, or when a country that was an unknown in Cape Verde almost beat Argentina. And I thought the refs were a little hard on him in that game. And they had a goalkeeper who kept Spain from scoring, got them into the late rounds of the World Cup at 41 years old. Well, good for him. That's damn impressive. So I thought it'd be fun to talk about something a little different this week. And ultimately, as I started with my appreciation for everything American, I'm sure you did this weekend as well. Proud to be part of the 250th. I'm not sure I'll see the next one, the 300th anniversary. I would be 108, so probably not. I certainly won't be doing this at 108, but you never know. But for today, proud to see this one and celebrate it, and certainly proud to be in America. As my dad said, there's no greater country on the planet. It gave my family everything we could ever hope to have. And for that, I will always be grateful to the United States. And like all of us, defend it with all our might, because it's our home and we're proud of it. And while maybe not perfect, better than everywhere else in the world, I would argue by a lot. Capitalism works, and it works really well. And I am living proof of that. Having said that, I hope you had again, wonderful, healthy, and happy 4th of July. Hats off to Vozina. Enjoy the World Cup. Our striker is allowed to play tonight. As a soccer fan, not sure I love that the president made a phone call. Hopefully, he had nothing to do with it. Hopefully, just made a suggestion, and FIFA got there for the right reasons. But having that aside, it'd be an exciting game for the World Cup. Hopefully, the United States can advance to a place they've never been. They never made it to the round of 8. It'd be kind of cool to see that happen. Mexico lost to England last night, which was surprising to me. I really thought Mexico was going to go further. They look really strong. And Canada's out, so the home countries, 2 out of 3 are out. Let's hope it doesn't become 3 out of 3. Have a wonderful week, everybody. Talk to you real soon. Happy 4th of July. Take care. Bye-bye.